the country, from California, New York, and everywhere in between, came to Florida for our open schools, our parental rights, medical freedom, lower taxes, law and order, and leadership that was willing to stand up when the country was bending to the federal pressure, corporate pressure, and cultural pressure. But today, Floridians are feeling a new pressure. Families are being crushed by property taxes. Affordability is the #1 topic across the board for people in the state. Property taxes, housing costs, groceries, electric bills, rising cost of simply staying in the communities that you all helped build. Seniors are worried about being taxed out of their homes. Families are worried that they may never actually be able to realize that American dream, and families are still trying to protect their children from the woke ideology, online exploitation, digital tracking, and government overreach. At the same time, Florida is facing major questions about growth development. I know you all have experienced unprecedented growth development here on the West Coast, and I know that the roads and the infrastructure simply haven't kept up. I know because I lived here for a number of years. We're also looking at water, land, energy, and whether powerful interests are trying to turn our playground into a state into a playground for the special interests, for the lobbyists, for big tech, for foreign money, for data centers, and those political insiders. And you guys are asking some very basic questions. Who will make Florida affordable again? Who will protect our aquifer, our land, our power grid, and our neighborhoods? Who will defend parental rights, medical freedom, election integrity, and the Second Amendment? Who will stop public corruption, insider dealing, unlawful surveillance, illegal immigration, and policies that put all of the special interests ahead of Florida families? And just as important, who has the record, judgment, and discipline to actually govern? So tonight, we're going to look at the top 4 candidates. And again, no disrespect to Bobby Williams. Again, I want to just make that very clear. We have James Fishback, Jake Collins, Byron Donalds, and Paul Renner. We'll begin with their resumes, their work history, all without the spin. Then we will look at where each candidate has made news, what questions they have raised, what their records tell us, and how their messaging points towards Florida future. We're going to be using their words. This isn't about any kind of personality contest. It is about readiness to serve, to govern, to lead in that public servant sort of fashion. Florida does not need any celebrity candidates. We don't want a manufactured candidate or a candidate who actually becomes a vetting file. Florida needs a governor who understands the pressures that the families in this beautiful state are under, how Tallahassee works, has already delivered some conservative results, and has a clear plan to expand the free state of Florida. That's the standard. So now let's take a look at the candidates. Forgive me, I'm having to produce and do this all at the same time, so it's going to be a little clunky, but we'll get through it. Can you all see that okay? All right. So for our audience, you should see a home screen with my picture on it. All right. I call this Florida at a crossroads, the candidates, the records, and the choice for governor. Here are the 4 candidates that I've talked about. We have James Fishback, who in his last job was a research analyst at Greenlight Capital. He's the founder of Azoria. He's a founder, leader of Incubate Debate, which is why he's such a polished public speaker. And he's also a 2026 candidate for governor. We also have the current Lieutenant Governor, Jake Collins, U.S. Army veteran, Green Beret, Special Forces. You all know his story. He lost a leg and came back for 5 more years and re-upped. Brilliant. Post-military nonprofit work. He was an elected Florida Senate in District 14 in 2022. He served until August 12th of 2025, not quite a full term, but he was appointed lieutenant governor at that point. Then you've got Byron Donalds, right here from your hometown. He has a background in banking and finance. He was a Florida House representative from 2016 to 2020, a healthy representative of how the sausage is made here in the state. He went into U.S. Congress in 2021, where he's still currently a congressman, and he also is a candidate for governor. And then we also have Paul Renner. He is a 23-year U.S. Navy veteran, retired as a commander. He's a former felony prosecutor in Broward County. He's also had his own business and commercial real estate, and commercial commercial attorney, I should say, business attorney and commercial business. He was a Florida House representative from 2015 till 2024, where he spent the last 2 years as the Speaker of the House from 2022 to 2024. He was also appointed to the Florida Board of Governors in 2025, and now he's currently the candidate for governor. So let's break him down one at a time. James Fishback. James has worked at Greenlight Capital and DME as a research analyst through 2021 to 2023. After leaving Greenlight, he launched Azoria. He publicly marketed himself as Greenlight's former head of macro. That was disputed later. We'll get to that. Fishback also founded and led Incubate Debate. And as I said, he's now running for the governor of Florida. He presents himself, and if you've seen his videos, they're viral everywhere, as a young outsider, a financial sector reformer. But his resume has become inseparable from some legal, some credibility, and residency questions, and we'll get to that. In terms of his former employer, Greenlight, this is where it gets a little bit interesting. Fishback's former employer became locked in litigation with him after his departure. The fight centered on money owed under promissory note obligations. Greenlight loaned him money twice under promissory notes. There's alleged breaches of employment, confidentiality agreements, and disputes over Fishback's public description of his role at the firm. They claim he was never head of macro. He was a research analyst. A federal court entered a judgment against James Fishback on that note for approximately $228,000 in change, and a judge later awarded his former employer, Greenlight, more than $1.3 million in fees and costs tied to that employment agreement dispute. Bottom line, the Greenlight fight was about money, confidentiality, credibility, and whether Fishback exaggerated his role at the hedge fund while building his next venture in Azoria. Fishback's Incubate Debate. He's faced allegations involving his time connected to Incubate Debate and the Broward School District. Reports allege that he had a relationship involving a 17-year-old tied to Incubate Debate. He has denied any wrongdoing. The political issue isn't just the allegation in of itself, but the vetting question, whether a candidate for governor can survive scrutiny around schools, minors, nonprofits, and personal judgment. He denies any wrongdoing, but the allegations have created a serious vetting problem for a candidate asking voters to trust him with Florida schools, families, and executive power and authority. Next up, Fishback has some residency concerns and eligibility, whether or not he's qualified under the Florida Constitution. I want to emphasize the Florida Constitution, not statutory law, whether he has eligibility to run. You have to have a 7-year consecutive residency in Florida before you can apply or sign your oath that you are qualified to run in the Florida governorship, to run for Florida governorship. Jay Collins, another candidate, has now sued James Fishback. I have personally been putting out the residency concern for months, and the receipts come directly from Washington, D.C.'s in-person voter rolls, where James Fishback and his parents all registered the same day to vote in Washington, D.C. on November 3rd, 2020. They have consecutive voter ID numbers. The in-person poll book report shows that he and his family went in on November 3rd and voted in Washington, D.C., filed tax returns that same period in Washington, D.C., had an apartment with homesteaded property exemptions in Washington, D.C., all at the same time. If you do the math, it's 2026. That's 6 years ago. So by Florida law, that does not qualify you. That is currently in court being litigated. The judge will be listening to the evidence on the 21st and the 22nd next week, Monday and Tuesday, and a decision will be rendered whether or not James Fishback is able to continue his pursuit in the governor's race. Bottom line, Fishback still contends he's eligible. The records have raised a totally direct question. How can a candidate claim 7 years of Florida residency while voter, property, mortgage, and homestead records point to Washington, D.C.? And after this presentation, I'm happy to go through all of the receipts and show you what I'm talking about. I'm just giving you a broad sweeping overview right here. So, James Fishback, to summarize it, a relationship with a 17-year-old girl during as an employee when he was at Incubate Debate at Broward Schools. There's allegations of harassment and stalking, a judgment ordering him to pay $229,000. In addition to that 1.2, he had his Tesla repossessed as they were looking to collect on the judgment. Attorneys had quit for James Fishback because he owed them over $150,000 in unpaid fees. Therefore, unable to lead his company, you have homestead concerns in Washington, D.C., and then credibility. This is all under James Fishback. Moving on to James Collins, a career snapshot for Jay. Impressive. U.S. Army veteran and former Green Beret Special Forces. He was a Special Forces medic. Retiring from the Army in 2018, he moved to Florida, and he worked in nonprofit and post-military roles. He first ran for Congress in 2021. He later entered that Florida Senate District 14 race in 2022, and he was elected to the Florida Senate in November of that year. Governor DeSantis appointed him to the lieutenant governor position in August of 25. Jay has an incredibly strong military biography, but a very short elected Florida political career before being elevated to the lieutenant governor position. Let's look at his timeline. Moving to Florida from the Army as a retiree in 2018, he admitted in the Patrick Bet-David debate several weeks ago where I attended that he did not vote for Ron DeSantis in 2018. He claimed he was in the middle of transition, didn't make it to the polls. He did not hold elected office for those 4 years. And in 2022, he appeared, as I said, he worked for those nonprofits, but he switched districts in 2022 when he started to run for state versus Congress because he wanted to run for Congress first, didn't see himself with a path. So he switched to a state role in 2022, and that's when he won that race. He was elected, as I said, and he served roughly 3 years, not completing a full term, and he's now currently the lieutenant governor. He was not part of the 2018 original DeSantis voter movement. So just remember that. That's important. What's also important is this timeline here. I want you to see it in its entirety. In July 11th, 2025, Governor Ron DeSantis announced that Jay's wife, Layla Collins, was appointed to the State Board of Education. She became effective in the governor's office. They released that statement in August of last year. And right after that, August 12th, 11 days later, Jay was made lieutenant governor. This is where it gets a little interesting. How many of you have heard about Burnergate? By show of hands, Burnergate. Do you guys know what a burner phone is? When you have another phone that nobody knows who it is and it's your private phone? Well, we see in Burnergate, there seems to be a pattern where you've got people inside the DeSantis orbit that are accusing Layla Collins of using burner phones going back years now, going back earlier in time to not just most recently, where burner phones were used to criticize other candidates or other members of the Florida state or the Florida legislature, what have you, including Governor DeSantis, where Layla Collins was basically putting down Governor DeSantis in a number of ways. Now, here's where it's very interesting. Christina Pashaw, who's the former comms director for DeSantis, and James Uthmeyer, our attorney general, his deputy chief of staff, James, has also been pointing to Layla Collins using burner phones. These are very heavy allegations. And if somebody from the attorney general's office is making those allegations, I would hope that they have the evidence because it's serious. This shows disloyalty. This shows somebody who does not appreciate what was given to them in terms of service, served up on a silver platter by the governor for Layla and her husband. And it has been a big controversy across the internet. So, judgment, loyalty, political hygiene, these are things you need to consider when you're looking at a candidate. Are they making good judgments here? Is this just social media drama? Or is it really an issue of judgment? So this is something that people need to be aware of. And if you just type in Burnergate on social media, I can assure you there'll be a lot that comes up about it. It's not about gossip. If burner accounts were actually used to attack the movement, voters should know who did it. They should know when they knew who it was and why these appointments moved forward anyway, because these appointments happened for Layla and Jay Collins after Burnergate even started. It just became very, very obvious what was happening during the Patrick Bet-David debate a couple of weeks ago. Okay, let's look at Jay's legislative record. He served, like I said, from 2022 to 2025 before he became the lieutenant governor. His record includes support for the Second Amendment legislation, including permitless carry. He was part of the Republican Senate majority during the heartbeat protection era. He even served during major election integrity reforms. He has kept his promises on energy, utility, AI data centers, which he is pro, including concerns about hyperscale data centers and impacts on water power infrastructure. Last year in 2025, before he became lieutenant governor, Jay Collins tried to pass 1264, Senate Bill 1264, which would have given tax abatements and tax preferential treatment to hyperscale data centers. So to say that he's anti-AI data centers would not be truthful. He would say he's pro because he was trying to give tax incentives to come here. Moving on to Byron Donalds, a career snapshot here. He's now, as you probably know, he's worked in banking, finance, all of this before he went into the political career. He served in the Florida House from 2016 to 2020. I'd say that gives him a great runway for understanding how the sausage is made. He was elected to Congress in 2020, and he served in the U.S. House in 2021 through today. He's now currently running for governor. He has the longest current federal elected profile of the 4 candidates, but his record raises some concerns about judgment, money, and personal history. So we're going to take a look at that. Facts. Donald's criminal record and disclosure questions. He has actually faced a lot of scrutiny over prior arrests and charges, including a marijuana-related arrest and a later bribery and fraud-related charge or case. People that talk about this, that have concerns about it, all point to questions about how those issues were actually disclosed in later public or political contexts. They were not brought to the surface in the beginning. So the issue is not whether people can change, because I think we can extend grace to everybody in this room. We've all made mistakes. The issue is the transparency about this, the honesty, and whether the voters are getting the full story. And that's where it stops for me. I'm always, who hasn't made mistakes here? Anybody? Everybody perfect? Yeah, okay, we're not perfect. All right, Byron Donalds and Larry Wilcoxon. One of the things my parents always told me is, show me your friends and I know who you are. Again, everybody makes mistakes, but this one is concerning to me. Let's talk about Larry Wilcoxon. Larry Wilcoxon, who has served as one of Donald's closest political advisors, himself has publicly referred to Wilcoxon as his brother away from home. And Wilcoxon has told the Florida Trident that the two talk about everything. This matters because Wilcoxon's history has become part of the public record. And according to court records and multiple published reports, Wilcoxon has actually faced numerous arrests and criminal cases over the years, including charges involving armed robbery, aggravated assault, battery, and grand theft auto, misdemeanor battery, forgery, firearms violations, and theft-related offensive. A 2015 felony grand theft auto conviction was actually later vacated in 2022. Civil court records also include allegations involving a former fiance who sought an injunction for protection and an older federal lawsuit concerning allegations from his time as a substitute teacher. These allegations actually have been publicly reported, and some did not actually result in a criminal conviction. Does Larry Wilcoxon deserve redemption? I say we all do. But again, what we've learned about history is we are learning today, when we look back at history, there's nothing new under the sun. We're always in this sort of repeat cycle of what's going on in our government. And at some point, we have to break the chains and take it back, where we are the people are the government again. And we tell them in DC, we tell them in Tallahassee what we want. So, okay, right on. The question is why Byron Donalds chose somebody with a very extensive public history to become one of his closest political advisors, and why campaign finance records show Wilcoxon received more than $300,000 in reimbursements and consulting payments from Donald's political committees beginning back in 2021. Donald's campaign, they have issued a statement saying Wilcoxon is not serving as a paid consultant on the gubernatorial campaign. Again, every governor is judged by the people they trust, empower, and rely upon. Leadership isn't just measured by personal conduct, but also by the judgment of those that are advising closest to you. I think I'm going to skip this slide because this gets a little personal, but it's about his relationship with Erica and how he met his wife and the timeline. I don't really think it's necessary to get into that now, but he was married when he met Erica, and that's all I'll say about that. Now let's talk about money and influence. And if you go on each of these candidates' websites, they list their issues. And if you go into the Florida Elections Commission and you look at their PACs and at their campaigns, they list all the donors. So this information is coming directly from that. And Donald's campaign does have a significant establishment and endorsement strength. He's up to what, $90 million he's raised so far? 100 million now? I can't keep up. It's like tick, tick, tick. His websites list endorsements from major Florida Republican officials and including a news section highlighting support from figures such as Bolton Simpson, Blaise Ignolia, James Utheimer, and incoming legislative leaders, including Ashley Moody. At the same time, critics are now raising questions about the donor networks because, as we always say, follow the money. His congressional trading, stock trading, insider trading, not reporting trades on time according to the congressional rules and laws that they have to follow. Massive increase in wealth in a short amount of time. The same story we hear out of every member of Congress just about, the skyrocketing accumulation of wealth as soon as they hit the ground in the swamp. Financial disclosures, not being truly forthcoming about that. Charter school and Optima-related issues involving his wife, Erica Donalds, who has taken millions of state dollars, and she has publicly sent them off to various shell corporations, many of them run by John Schneider, who happens to be my state rep that will term out after this next session. Not this one, but the one following. And I have vowed to run for that seat myself because I can only talk about, issues and concerns, and I gotta, walk the talk at some point. So there's concerns about the money that has gone through her Optima Foundation. And of course, his support for big tech AI data centers. And all this looks, and it comes directly from donors that have supported Byron Donalds. They say 33,000 or 35,000 donors to Byron Donalds. But if you do the math into 100 million, that's a lot of money for donors. So let's talk about who the real donors are. Because we're not trying to prove every allegation here tonight. We're trying to frame a very central voter question. Would a Donalds administration be governed for you, Floridians, or would it be shaped by the donor networks and the special interests? So let's look at this a little bit further. If you look at his conservative positions, Donalds has faced pressure over debates. Has Byron Donalds done a debate with Bobby or Paul or Jay or James? No. Now, the reason we're being told is because nobody's polling above double digits. I have to be honest, President Trump, God bless him, he talked about the fake news and the fake polls from day one. I'm here to tell you, I don't believe the polls that I'm seeing. And I talk to people that are on the ground doing door knocking, and the numbers I hear back don't reflect what the Donalds team is saying. And that's just anecdotal evidence. It's like being a clinical doctor and you see people come in for the same disease state and everybody's trending in a certain direction. That's it. If it's actual, if he runs away with it, then we'll know in hindsight's 2020 the polls were accurate. But I do believe in the best deference to all of us, the Donald supporters deserve to see their candidate in a debate compared to other candidates that have differences of opinion. Because how do you know if your candidate can fire under pressure and handle the questions and give you the policies to back up the talking points that they're issuing at the time if they're not under pressure? This is just politics 101, and we are being denied that. And I mean, you've got, people all over the place demanding debates. It's gotten to be, we're getting tone deaf listening to this at this point. So when we look at following the money, these are some stats. Byron Donalds has actually missed congressional votes 161 times. He is the fourth highest missed voting record in Congress. And predominantly the reason he missed votes is because he was doing news hits on cable TV. When you look at Donald's portfolio, 352 stock trades since taking office. Many of those were not reported in a timely fashion. He sits on those committees that's supposed to oversee this. He bent the rules that way. He didn't pay attention. He's taken a lot of money. We're talking $100 million. Let's just say only 50 of it is from special interests, and that 33,000 people donated the other 50 million. Can somebody do the math for me on that? What does that come out to per voter? I don't believe it. Pardon me? 1.5 million per voter. Okay, thank you. I don't believe 33,000 people gave an average of $1.5 million to Byron Donalds if you take 50 million of it, of the 100. So this is really big special interest money. Today, his skyrocketed net worth has gone to $4.4 million. He went into Congress at $664,000. So we have to ask the question, whose special interests are coming first? Yours or big donors. When you follow the money, this comes from his issues page. Go to byrondonalds.com. You'll find a broad variety of issues in virtually every conservative area, right? This is what Donalds tell you he stands for: affordability, immigration enforcement, conservative values, infrastructure, economic development, environmental protection. But when you look over here at the donor category, who is sending the really big money, energy companies who stand to make billions in profit with hyperscale AI data centers, or just hyperscale data centers. Gambling interests, FanDuel, DraftKings, the Seminole Tribe of Florida, all putting in big money. Financial billionaires, Jeff Yass and Thomas Petterfy, lots of money, almost $10 million there, just between those two. The Club for Growth, Americans for Prosperity, the Kochs, and the Geo Group. This is an interesting fact. Who knows the gentleman who was in the movie The Big Short? He's short of the real estate market. Michael Burry. Michael Burry shorted the real estate market in 2008 and made billions. Everybody thought he was crazy because he was selling short on the real estate market right before it tanked. Well, Michael Burry dumped his portfolio worth billions of dollars, a couple hundred, I think, and bought all into private prison systems a couple of years ago. Why? Because he saw the dystopian view of what's happening to our society. We are collapsing into a very serious surveillance state, and the Geo Group is a private prison company, and they are all about locking people up. We have slowed down on our mass deportations massively. I have inside sources in ICE, and they're telling me, Ann, the mass deportations aren't happening. We can talk about why another time, but I can tell you they're not happening. And so mass deportations and private prison systems is big money. And then, of course, AI. My Chat GPT, my Claude, whatever, Grok, all works fine. I don't need to go any faster. But these hyperscale data centers aren't about AI. They're about the financial surveillance state. It's about peddling us out of, definitely not going into real world assets. It's about going into digital assets. And no, they're not going to call it CBDC. They're calling it Bitcoin and stablecoin, of which the stablecoins are backed by the US dollar, which is backed by nothing. So this is a concern for me when I look at the Genius and the Clarity Acts. They're trying to pass the Clarity Act right now. This is your track and trace using Bitcoin. And now that we know that Jeffrey Epstein was very involved in Bitcoin in the early days, I have a real issue with it because he's part of the surveillance state. He's part of the intelligence community. Okay, let's talk about the next candidate, Paul Renner. He is in full transparency, everybody in here knows I support Paul Renner, but I'm going to just go through the facts. And then you all have a conscience and a brain, and you have discernment. You fact check me on everything I put out here today. I will post this presentation, and you can go and check it all on their own websites, and you can do your own research. As I told Jimmy and Carol, this took me about 15 hours to put all this together. And I've been doing research on this a lot longer, but to distill it into something that you could, digest quickly. Paul Renner's background is he's a Florida native. He graduated from Davidson College, and he went to Davidson College. He went to the UF Law School. It's actually 23. I have a typo there, sorry. 23 years in the U.S. Navy. He was in combat operations and retired as a Navy commander, former felony prosecutor, Speaker of the House for 2 years. Ron DeSantis, James Madison Institute, refer to that as the session of the century. That was when COVID was hot and heavy. And if you remember the whole free state of Florida, actually, Paul Renner was the architect that put that for Ron DeSantis to take and run with. And of course, he was appointed to Ron's Board of Governors in 2025. This is his record. Session of the century with lots of conservative wins. He championed health, freedom, and parental rights legislation under Governor Ron DeSantis. He helped pass the heartbeat legislation banning abortions after 6 weeks in Florida. He helped pass universal school choice, giving parents the power over their child's education. He received the Defensor Dignitatis Award from the Florida Bishops in Defense of Innocent Human Life on March 25th, 2025. And he helped lead the fight to defeat Amendment 3 on the recreational marijuana and on Amendment 4 on abortion on demand. So if you're a pro-life person, that's Paul. He's not just a conservative, he actually walks the talk. In terms of his protection for children, parents, and Florida values, this is what I'm very much, a part of in our foundation. We are fighting Child Protective Services. We've written legislation to really overhaul CPS so that families aren't being terrorized and having their families destroyed by hearsay and lack of due process when it comes to these star chambers, AKA family courts. So again, Paul helped ban gender transition procedures. He cracked down on the exploitation of online pornography. He stopped the woke indoctrination. He fought DEI hiring schemes. He cut taxes and spending and delivered major tax relief and spending restraint. Again, cutting back on taxing on Pampers and diapers. This is all stuff that adds up to the young family budget. He was the only Florida governor candidate in this comparison with the experience in helping balance the Florida state budget. And as you know, in those years, we had a surplus and a lot of that money came back to us. He's also helped deliver a security for our state. He is one of the toughest illegal immigration laws helped pass to protect Florida workers, taxpayers, and communities. So let's take a look at the side-by-side betting matrix. I'll help you understand this because when you look at the numbers on the far left, 1 through 10, I have the candidates lined up. So let's look at the Florida residency questions. James Fishback. There's currently an active legal challenge in Washington, D.C. about his residency requirements to meet the Florida constitutional law. Jay Collins, he arrived in 2018. There's some, commentary about his ability to be a lieutenant governor at this point in time because he's not here long enough to actually replace DeSantis if something were to happen to Ron DeSantis because he's not here full 7 years. That was last year, Byron Donalds, no issues with residency. Paul Renner, clearly no issues. Let's look at the legal baggage. James Fishback still having a lot of legal baggage that he's still entangled in. You've got the green light litigation, other betting allegations. Jay Collins, there's no major legal baggage per se. Byron Donalds, we've got the past arrest disclosure. He should have been more transparent up front. We shouldn't be learning about these things now while he's running for governor. And Paul Renner, 0. Military service, James Fishback, none. Collins, exemplary. Byron, none. And of course, Paul Renner, same, exemplary. Florida elected experience. James Fishback, no Florida elected experience. Jay Collins, 3 years in the Senate. Byron Donalds in the State House and Congress. And of course, Paul, who was elected in 2015, then became Speaker and through 2024. Executive readiness. This is where I think it really matters. We don't have any proven executive readiness for James Fishback. Jay Collins, we have limited statewide record before being appointed lieutenant governor. Byron Donalds, high profile, but there's some executive trust questions, and that needs to be explored further. Paul Renner, again, readiness, leadership, budget experience. Legislative wins, none for Fishback. Jay Collins clearly voted conservatively before he became lieutenant governor. Byron Donalds, Byron Donalds' congressional record is debated. Again, he's missed a lot of votes, and that is, to me, dereliction of duty. If you're there to represent me, you're supposed to show up to vote. My personal opinion. Paul Renner, again, major wins as Speaker. Conservative governing record, none for Fishback. Conservative for Jay. Conservative profile, but again, the trust in Byron Donalds, and then of course, Paul Renner, conservative. Debate readiness. They've all pushed for debates heavy and hard, except Byron Donalds. And again, I'm going to show you, get your cameras out here in a minute. I've got a QR code on the next slide. It has a link to the Patrick Bet-David debate. Don't take my words, watch the debate. It's a couple hours, so get a glass of wine, but you're going to want to watch the debate and you can make your own conclusions from there. In terms of donor influence and concerns, clearly with Fishback, we have some financial concerns, some residency issues. Jay Collins, there was an appointment during a time when he wasn't here 7 years. That's not on Jay per se, although he signed and swore an affidavit that he could fulfill the obligations based on the Florida Constitution, wasn't exactly accurate at that time. Byron Donalds, we've got concerns with donors. Who's the big money backing him, and what is that agenda about versus what he says on his website? Stock trading that went unreported, and of course, influence concerns from these same donors. Paul Renner, lower concerns, record centered on issues in governance. And then again, governing. Fishback has none, no experience whatsoever. That's going to be a high, steep learning curve. Jay Collins, some readiness, shorter track record. Byron Donalds, still questions remain about his day one priorities because we haven't heard what he's going to say on day one. Paul Renner, most prepared. Bottom line, what do we want? We want a governor who can expand the free state of Florida because I think we all love what happened during DeSantis when it came down to COVID. We saw what the federal government will try to do. And in Collier County, the Coyotes, where are you? There you are. These two, along with some incredible people in your community, led to stand up the Bill of Rights Sanctuary County. Who else is here for that? Oh, sorry, Jackie and Carol, of course, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And Christine, so an incredible group of freedom-loving people that live in your community said, we are going to give the Heisman, the high five, goodbye federal government. You're not going to tell me to mask up and take a shot unless I want to. That is where it all starts. God put us on the earth to be free, not to be in bondage, and our government is supposed to protect us. Our Constitution, our Bill of Rights is supposed to make sure that those freedoms are preserved. And thanks to some great people here, you all had that. We're the first county to do it, and they're starting to do it around the rest of the state. So this is what we need to be talking about here, because from where I'm sitting, and this is where I'm going to lean into my bias, and I'm open to all questions, because at the end of the day, I want to see the best candidate serve Florida to the best ability for us, for what we want. Not what some hyperscale data center wants, not what NextEra or FP&L wants. In fact, the governor should be telling these energy companies, if these hyperscale data centers think they're coming in here and we decide it's a good thing for our state, my taxpayers aren't going to be supporting your utility bills for those hyperscale data centers. The one candidate that talks about that very, very in detail is Paul Renner. He put up his 100 days, in his first 100 days contract with Florida. He goes through everything from how he's going to make Florida affordable. How many of you have a homestead property here? Okay, most of you. Your homestead exemption off your assessed rate is how much?
I think it's
$50,000. So if your house is assessed at $800, you get a $50,000 exemption to $750, and they tax you the millage on $750. Paul Renner will actually be increasing your homestead exemption to $1 million. $1 million. So if your house has a tax assessment of $1 million or less, forget the market value, it could be $2 million, but if it's assessed at $1 million or less, no property tax, not school, not anything. To me, if you want to make Florida affordable, that's a lot of money in your pocket. He's going to go after homeowners insurance to get them to reduce it by 10 to 20%. He's going to absolutely go after the public corruption. He wants to trim the fat at the state by 30%. He's going to make sure that the out-of-state homeowners, the BlackRocks that come in and buy all the homes here in Florida, they're going to make up the difference. This is where I think we need to look at who has a plan, who has thought it out incredibly in a lot of incredible detail. Because when I look at other websites, I see some talking points that look the same, but I don't see the detail. And this is what I'm trying to bring to your attention. This QR code, I highly recommend that you take a look at it, because from where I'm sitting, I don't want to have a surveillance state in Florida. I don't want flock cameras on every corner, even though they've been here for a while. But when you pair those with hyperscale data centers and the fact that they want to actually track and trace your digital money, if you're a bad girl and you bought too much Florida beef, where's our cattle rancher? You bought too much Florida beef and they decide you've eaten too much of your quota, they can shut down your digital money. They took $350 billion worth of Bitcoin from Iran a couple of months ago. You think they don't know who you are and where you got it? They can do it. So for those that believe in digital, God bless you. I'm a real world asset person. I like things I can touch, gold I can hold. And if it's not backed by gold, I don't want to invest in it. It's just how I am. It's biblical. And maybe I'm too much in that direction. My personal opinion, I'm not telling you what to do. So that being said, I want to open it up for questions. And thank you very much.
I just want to say something before Ann starts fielding the questions. How many people watch the World Cup, right? Soccer game, we all saw it. What are the people from the other countries saying? Wow, I can't believe how beautiful this country is and how welcome the American people are. Now, why would they have a negative opinion of us as Americans in this country? I'll tell you why. Because of the journalists over there. We have the same problem in this country. So I just want to make everybody aware of the fact that Ann is just here to present the facts. She's not here to stump for anybody. You draw your own conclusions from what she said. but she is truly a journalist. If you look it up in Webster's dictionary, you'll see her face next to it. She's a true journalist, not like this crap that we've had feeding this country for too long. So with that being said, I'm going to open the floor up now for questions. Doug.
Yes, I have two things about Byron and his friend. Are you aware that most of those votes he missed was at the request of now President Trump when he was number one surrogate and running all over the country, getting him elected our president? And number two, on his friend, criminal charges, are you aware of what Hertz was doing at the time? There were thousands of people who turned in rental cars and they didn't keep track of them. So they was word of stolen. His friend ended up collecting tens of thousands of dollars from Hertz, as did many people who were cut off by their bankruptcy. And that was the alleged grand theft charge. Did you check into those two matters?
Did I or would I?
Did you?
No, I did not, but I will. Thank you for. As far as President Trump having Byron Donalds run around the country for surrogacy, I saw it myself. I was at the Lincoln dinner here in Collier last year, and Corey Mills stepped in and spoke for Byron because he was called to go to the White House. I don't know if anybody, I know you were there. He was called away and couldn't speak. And I totally appreciate that. You have to look at the holistic picture, and that's what I'm trying to present. The details on all the issues around candidates. It's not, Byron has issues, James Fishback has issues, and I know there's issues with Paul Renner that are going to come up, and we're going to address each and every one of them because that's what we're supposed to do. And I thank you so much for bringing that up, and I'm going to look into the Hertz because I haven't looked into that. You're absolutely.
Stories all over the.
I'm aware of it, but I wasn't referring to Hertz. I'm so sorry. I didn't actually bring that up. I was talking about other issues.
Thousands of more people collecting except their bankruptcy file.
Yeah. Maybe OJ. Yeah.
Paul Renner produced early on a health freedom initiative proclamation to follow through with when he is elected governor. And top of that list is to end vaccine mandates for children in the state of Florida. And my question is, he's the only candidate that I'm aware of that has made that proclamation that he will end the childhood vaccine mandates, not take away the right for parents to get that poisonous injection if they want it, but he will end the mandates. I just want to make sure that I'm clear. None of the other candidates have stood up for the children. And if you can't stand up for the children, right, against unconstitutional vaccine mandates, then in my mind, the choice is very simple.
Amen.
I want to make a point. I mean, it's a great point, Scott. He's the only gentleman that's talked about that. In fact, near and dear to my heart, at American Made Foundation, we are looking, as I said earlier, directly into CPS and what they're doing to the children and families in our community, which is unbelievably horrific. 95% of the children in the CPS pipeline do not legally qualify to be in the CPS pipeline. That's 500,000 children held hostage in our country today. I challenge each and one of you, if we had 500,000 Americans in Afghanistan being held hostage, would you not want the military there? I submit to you, you'd all say, yes, go get our free Americans and free them. This is where I am. And unfortunately, I did an emergency broadcast yesterday, or a quick hit, I should say, with Dr. Edward Shoemaker, who's a psychologist that deals in foster care. He had 200 families Saturday at a ranch in Lakeland, Florida, waiting for Jay Collins, who had asked Dr. Shoemaker and the team to put together a contingency of families that have been impacted by the system. He no-showed. He didn't send a representative. He didn't call or text. So families that have been ignored by the system and trampled by the system got kicked again by somebody who's supposed to be a representative. And this is just a fact. You can judge it as good, bad, or indifferent. I'm just giving the facts. And so back to your point with Byron, I am going to look into that, but that actually wasn't what I was discussing in terms of the Larry Wilcoxon thing. So thank you. That's just something else to reference. I appreciate it.
Well, John, give me 1 second. I want to recognize Kate first. Kate.
Well, first of all, I just want to stand up for both Byron and Erica, who have been standing up for children for 20 years. And because of them, we have made progress that we have in school choice and so many other things. So we all owe them a lot of gratitude
Absolutely.
for that, number one. Number two, business gives to winners. They know he is going to win. And that is why he gets all the donations. Yeah, what's going on here tonight is not good for our party. Because all it does is serve the needs of Democrats so that they can come back and throw all of this nonsense that's going on here tonight back at us. So Byron is going to win, and all of this serves no purpose except to hurt the party as a whole. So I don't appreciate it. And furthermore, as far as being a credible journalist, I think that's unfair because yesterday you posted, or a couple days ago, you posted that Byron set up Fishback to come to the CCRC meeting. That was ridiculous. So.
Was there? For questions? Is there another question? Because I'm sure some people have questions about Paul.
I just have two quick questions. One, listen, I'm not an expert in Bitcoin, but I know this. You made a statement that you wouldn't deal with Bitcoin because you only invest or currency that's backed by gold. Unfortunately, the United States government, our currency is not backed by anything but a promise. So that statement doesn't make sense to me. Okay, question. The second one is, you had a glowing chart of Paul Renner with all greens. No one else had, all green approval. You made a statement that Mr. Renner, once he got elected, would have $1 million exemption for all people that are homestead. What that doesn't explain is how do the communities like Collier, like Lee, how do they pay for the obligations that those counties have? See, any politician could make a promise. I'll be $1 million. That doesn't cut it. How are you going to do it?
Thank you, John. My statement about gold was that I would only use currencies that are backed by gold. I didn't say we have one. I did not say, and if I did, I certainly wasn't thinking that, but I certainly don't, I know we don't have a gold-backed currency. I believe in real world assets. I own gold, I own silver, I own real estate. That's where I am with that. And I'm not a crypto person because I don't see a future in it. Not financial advice. This is me personally. I'm just speaking on my behalf. As far as Paul Renner is concerned, how he's going to do the $1 million homestead exemption. Two things. First of all, last night he spoke at a church. It was streamed. I have it up there. I can send it to Jimmy, and Jimmy, you can forward it. He explains in great detail how that happens. I wish I'd recorded Toby Oberdorf before him. He's one of the state reps near where I live. Toby breaks down our property tax receipts that don't go to the state, by the way. They go to all the municipalities, the counties, has absolutely ballooned in the last 5 or 6 years. 60% of it comes from non-homesteaded properties. We have a massive surplus. So to say, how is it going to impact your community goes right back to what Paul said. I'm going to paraphrase here because I don't have exactly what he said memorized, but he broke it down in very clear detail how exactly it would happen. Because yes, there are some communities, not Collier, but some of the less fortunate communities or less wealthy communities in Florida that it would have an impact on. It might impact their services. Those services can be supported by the state surplus, by other counties, because there's plenty of money in all of these counties from real estate taxes, which is why Paul wants to only extend it to the real Florida residents, to the homesteaded residents. Governor DeSantis with Daniel Perez, I know the governor was trying to do an elimination. I think the compromise was up to $250,000. That if you get in and you have a house by the end of, by January of this next year coming up. So he's encouraging people that want to get in now, if he's going to spur some real estate sales towards the end of the year. That's, of course, if it gets passed in November. And then they're looking at bumping it up from there. But what Paul Renner is doing is increasing that homestead deduction from 250 to 1 million, because we have so much extra money. And again, DeSantis, during Renner's speakership, was able to pay off a lot of debts earlier, which is something that Floridians cheered when that happened. I don't know if you remember it, but it was a big deal because we were the only state doing it. And we can continue to be the only state doing it. What we don't want to do is fall trap to giving up valuable land to massive development that has very little job creation, that is going to impact our resources. And this is where we need to know where Jake Collins stands on it. We need to know where Byron Donald stands on it. Because when you look at where the money's coming in from, that tends to lead you to believe where the candidate is going. And so that's where I'm going to leave it at that.
Go ahead, Ian.
I feel funny talking about it. I'd like to ask if you can tell me what we just discussed up there a few minutes ago about how, like myself, you really, really like Byron Donalds and his wife, but you've done research and you found out things that are concerning you, because I think there's a group that are killing the messenger here. And I think if we're all very respectful and we listen to what somebody has to say, even if we disagree with it, I think that's important. And I would call you a very good journalism person, because we get fake news from everybody because we're supposed to cheer everyone on and not ask questions. So before this started, I asked you how you felt about Byron and his wife at one time. So I thought it'd be interesting for some of you to hear this. Okay.
So when I first heard about Byron Donalds wanting to run for governor, I was ecstatic. I was very excited. I was on board, in fact. I received a call from a former state director for Trump 2016 campaign, when Trump won in 2016. And they told me that they were leaving the Donalds campaign and switching to the Renner campaign. And I said, why is that? And I knew very little about Paul Renner at that time. And they said, well, we've learned a few things. And they said, do your research. Of course, they weren't going to serve it up on a silver platter to me. So I had to go do my own research because they know I was going to do it anyway. And so then I did my own research. And that's when I started to learn about some of the things that I presented to you this evening. But it wasn't just me that decided to make that change. And again, if we're going to engage in civic duty, we have to do research. And I'm going to do research on what you said regarding the Hertz rental car stuff, because it's important. It's very important. We have all the facts, and I'm 100% with you. So thank you. But 100%. You got that right.
But I will tell you, there's a question whether or not Trump would be president today if Byron hadn't spent all that time running all over this country.
I don't discount that at all. I 100% agree with you. Byron was a great surrogate for the president, no question. But here's what I learned from this person who worked for the Trump campaign in 2016. It wasn't just she that left and went to Renner. It was the entire state directors for all of Trump 2016's campaign here in Florida that left and endorsed Paul Renner. So again, that all happened during the time I was doing my research, and I wasn't even made aware of it until after I'd come to the conclusion, what would be best for Florida is somebody with proven leadership experience and somebody who has the same values in terms of, I know I don't want these hyperscale data centers here in Florida. And I also know that our property taxes are killing us. I hate writing that check every year. It kills me to do it. So if we don't really need the money at the state and we can cut services that are just waste, fraud, and abuse, why wouldn't we do that? I mean, we were promised we were going to have a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse cut at the federal government. I'm still waiting for Betsy DeVos to say she's out of a job. We haven't had that yet. That's a personal beef I have with the president, because he promised us and he said day one, Betsy, you do a good job, you're out of a job. I want to see some of these promises that we are burdening the expenses for to come to fruition. We need President Trump to be successful. We need him to lead the free world. He's the greatest president we've ever had. But we can have a difference of opinion, and we can certainly shout out what we think is right and what we think we need improvement on.
Carol's got questions.
Go.
And what I'd like to know is, we hear all this information about the polls. What is happening with the polls? Are they somewhat accurate? Are they, how can we use the polls as a gauge?
If we used the polls in 2016 as a gauge, nobody would have shown up to vote. We wouldn't have President Trump. That's where I am with the polls. I'm not going to call out candidates now, but one of the 4 candidates used a pollster from his home state. That wasn't Florida. And I'm sorry, but that's an unfair poll because this person has worked with that candidate before. I just don't take stock in polls because if we're not on the ground, and I'm on the ground a lot, and I see what happens when people listen to certain candidates and they make decisions. At the end of the day, it's your decision and it's your conscience and it's your research that have to come to terms with who you want to vote for and what do you want from your governor, because they're here to serve us. And if we're not voting for that, and we're not keeping that in mind that Ron DeSantis works for you and me, we've lost the plot. That's not how our system of governance is supposed to work. So as far as the polls go, I'm not even paying attention anymore.
Yeah. So I see you put your chart with the 4 of them there. And obviously, as John has said, Paul has, and I like Paul, I know Paul. I appreciate his service. I appreciate Jay Collins' service to the country. Our son's a veteran. That's not the issue. But everybody else had all this negative stuff that you pointed out, and not one little tiny thing did you point out negative about Paul, like he was a saint. So I'll start you off with 2 pieces, and then you can continue on some other things that may be negative. Okay, so the negative, he voted no on the Parkland bill for our Second Amendment rights. And number 2, I was right there. It was at South Street Grill up at the new one up in Immokalee, when he was there with DeSantis signing the Live Local Act, which is the 15-minute cities. So those are 2 to start out with.
I'm so glad you brought up Parkland. Because believe me, when I heard about that, I went, oh, because you sit in my bedroom, there's probably 15 guns around my bed I can grab, from sawed-off shotguns to pistols and AR-15s, and you name it, I've got them. I'm a big gun person. I love guns. For defense, not to be, an antagonist here. So that was the first question I asked Paul Renner when I first met him. And because I wanted to know, that really bothered me. During that time, if you remember, who doesn't remember Parkland like it happened yesterday? I was about to go live. I was in my studio preparing for my nightly broadcast, and this hit the fan, and I couldn't breathe. I could not breathe. I'm a mother of 3 children, grandmother now of 4, and couldn't breathe. Anyway, Parkland was very, there was a lot of emotions, and to be honest, at that point, I thought to myself, what are we going to do? How are we going to protect these people? Why is it we can't get a good? Why can't we get a good guy with a gun to protect from the bad guys with guns? Why aren't our schools hardened? Why are teachers vulnerable? Why are these classrooms wide open and exposed? And you watch sheriffs and so forth standing around, picking their noses, no disrespect, but some of them just not going in and doing the job. Why? Why is this happening? Well, let me tell you something. If I'm walking into a situation, I don't know what's going on. I'm concerned where the gunman is. But if the teachers had self-defense, if we had armed resource officers at that time, we'd feel a lot more confident going in there. It's a team effort here. And for goodness sakes, these are our children. So I'm going to play this for you because I can't say any better than Paul Renner can. And then we'll come back and talk about it.
Opportunity to meet a few of the governmental gubernatorial candidates.
Hang on. I think I got the wrong video. Oh, I did. Here it is. Here we go.
So people ask you, so first one is race.
I'll tell you something, since we had done your free seven, the dogs. That, and all the opposite that, it beyond your free stuff, it means now today, it's gonna be a better, stop that guy. That's the bill. When I was in charge, four walls always those. I'm the third person that's straight, but get out and feel those things. It's very, it's lower the age, 21, 19, for the house, my fresh, 2 years there, but lower that age, back, 18 or 20. When I'm up there, I'm gonna get rid of all of things, aspects of the park bill. Good portions. Got things parking on us. Having this rest, almost gotta stop. That gotta be done. Try on country.
So, just to bring it back home, and something that you should be aware of. I took copious notes because I was on a call again about this because I want to make sure. I want to make sure that I actually, I'm speaking exactly what Paul said because I wanted to get this, because it really bothered me. But I can tell you that there was two times Speaker Renner approached his fellow members in the legislature 2 separate times to pass legislation to restore gun rights and to remove the offensive pieces of the Parkland bill. But at that point, again, emotions were high. We wanted to harden our schools and protect our children. Compromises were made at that moment in time. Twice he approached the Senate. And unfortunately, he actually approached Jay Collins, who's a strong Second Amendment guy. But Jay wouldn't even co-sponsor the bill with him. So, and that's Paul's words, not mine. That's from Paul Renner. So this is it's a very sensitive subject. But the first thing in this 100 days, one of them is to restore gun rights back down to 18, because we should never have increased them. That's just the way it is. But again, these compromises are made in the heat of the battle. Emotions running high. Parents just lost children. And it was a terrible time. So thank you for that question. Oh, live local. Thank you. So when it comes to living local, to me, and I'm a big green market lady, living local means you live local, you shop local, you support your communities, you support your government to the best of that ability, meaning if you can get involved, get engaged, attend meetings, sit in the back of the room, ask questions, do whatever you can. So in terms of living local, General Flynn, a personal friend, always says local action has national impact. If we're not looking at everything at a hyper-local level, the state of Tallahassee, the government up there is like the federal government in DC. Better, thank God. But it is the same thing. Tallahassee doesn't know what you want in your community. And that's why Collier County stood up and passed the Bill of Rights Sanctuary County, because Tallahassee wasn't doing it. And so this is the point of living local. And I don't have a disagreement with that. Okay, so have you been to, in terms of developing a 15-minute city, that's going to have to come down to your county commissioners. Are they going to allow a development for a 15-minute city? We're fighting that in Martin County right now. They're trying to do the same thing in Martin County. Is it the state decision to allow that to happen? I fully disagree with that. That comes right back down to the county government.
I'm going to send Carol down, Michelle, with the microphone.
To me, live local means increasing volume of communities and having small apartments. So you're having a small apartment maybe on top of this building, on top of a commercial building. You're going to have workforce housing in all different kinds of people. And you're going to change red areas to purple or blue. And that's what live local means to me.
And that's a great point. When I look at living local, I also look at the fact that some communities are trying to enforce or push in Section 8 housing into extremely wealthy areas. I saw it happen a lot in the Northeast. And unless the community wants to say, that's fine, we'll support that, but we're going to tell you where we're going to support it, as opposed to the government coming in and saying, we're going to take this beautiful prime property right here along the water, or whatever, it's an exaggeration. The community has to stamp up and fight back. If you are just going to allow the government to steamroll you, or a developer to own your county commissioner or your state rep or whomever to go ahead and subdivide your community, then that's really falling back on the citizen. And again, if you read our Constitution, it's we the people, it's not we the government, it's not we the World Economic Forum, we the United Nations, it's all of us. And that's why you guys are here, and that's what's so amazing about this club, because you have a lot of people that disagree on candidates and whatever. But it comes to the fact that you guys are stepping in and you guys are voicing your opinion. It's how well you can convince the guy next to you, or the woman next to you, and the people across your towns to see what you see, to come together and push back. And that. And so that's why you have to push back. This is what you need to tell Paul Renner. I don't disagree with you. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't disagree with you. Yeah.
So I have one comment and one, actually maybe two comments, sorry. One for them, one for you. So it says, this is a quick search, so you have to double check it later. But it says when Donald Trump was campaigning, if he would have missed every vote campaigning for Trump, that would be 89 votes. And the total missed was 163. So that still leaves 74 votes, assuming that every vote out of 89 was for Trump. And 78 and 74 votes is still higher than 85% of House representatives for missed votes. So it's still going to be 85% higher than others. So that's one negative for that part of the room. And then for you, what I think it would be helpful if you research the Live Local Act. So Live Local Act, before there was home rule. And home rule was that localities could choose what to develop and what not to develop. Live Local Act with Paul Renner and Kathleen Passidomo took the right from the local government and put it in Tallahassee. So now the developers can come and develop everywhere in Naples and put these apartments for affordable housing without us and local vote. So Paul Renner actually took our home rule and our right to vote for that. So if you could research that, and maybe you can influence him to help us in that, if you can.
And that's exactly what I'm going to bring back to Paul, because that is a conversation that we hear in other areas. And I know Paul is very interested in addressing that. But again, I'm going to let him, I'm going to actually ask Paul, because this is such an important issue, to address it in a video, a short video, and put it on social media. I think you'll be pleased to know his position has changed, but I don't want to speak for him. I want him to speak for himself, which is why I knew we'd hear Parkland, because I had to deal with Parkland. It was the first thing I wanted to know about Paul when I met him. And that's why I brought that video.
Hi, Ann. Yeah. The thing that I have in my mind right now is that we're talking about the Live Local, and these are probably new laws and ordinances or whatever, I don't know. But what came first was Agenda 21, then Agenda 2030. Those are underlayments for everything that they plan to do. And how much power do we actually have over these agendas that are already in place?
So her question is Agenda 21, Agenda 2030. We're really talking about the surveillance state. We're talking about a one world government sort of approach. That's a topic that we could talk about for hours. So I'm going to try and keep it very high level without going into too much detail, and I'll come to you. Paul Renner has said, and it's on the video if you watch the debate, he said it twice, I would stand in a moving train to stop the surveillance state and flock cameras. He is absolutely against anybody prying in, violating our Fourth Amendment rights, and telling us what to do based on what they know we're doing. And so when it comes to the Live Local, I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised when you hear his video addressing live local versus home rule. So yes, are we battling Agenda 2030 right now? Absolutely. Is Bill Gates all in on it? Absolutely. Is the World Economic Forum and that whole crew, Klaus Schwab, et cetera? Yes, 100%.
Go ahead, Dale.
But we can stop it. And that's why the Bill of Rights Sanctuary County matters. Because we're telling all those bozos, talk to the hand. Collier County isn't going to mask up, take shots, or do anything that we don't have to, because God gave us rights and the Bill of Rights protected, and we declared Collier County to be a Bill of Rights Sanctuary County. This is how we need to start talking to everybody, including Paul, Byron, Jay, and James.
Okay, so here's a statement, and I want to ask you, how do you think we should try to change it? So in the state of Florida, to run for state rep or senate, you have to live in your district. Why is it that congressional candidates do not have to live in their district to run or to live?
If we want to change that, we have to.
Don't you think that really needs to be changed?
I agree. If you're running for Congress, you should live in the district in which you're running. I mean, nobody knows your district better than you. And we see this happen all the time. I mean, look, the 17th Amendment should never have been passed. We should not have the U.S. Senate or elected the way it's elected. It was supposed to be from the state legislature. We have lost a lot of our power in a lot of these constitutional amendments that happened after 10, but that's another presentation for another day. Go ahead, Jill.
And you cover lots of different issues. I'm wondering what, in your opinion, what are the top 3 issues that we need to be focused on in Florida that affect both Florida and the United States?
First and foremost, in Florida, affordability, and that includes your property tax, your homeowner's insurance. I want to make sure we don't have the surveillance state in the state of Florida. I want to put the kibosh on that. I don't want these AI data centers pilfering our resources. If Elon Musk is working on putting these things out in space, God bless him, put them out in space. I hear China might build them underwater, keep them cool, whatever. But I don't want a surveillance state coming from AI data centers. And then again, security, family security, no more, the health freedom aspect of our lives is massive. If we learned nothing the last 5 years from COVID, it's that we want our own body sovereignty. We don't want somebody telling us what we have to do, where we have to wear on our face. The joke was when you went to dinner at a restaurant, you walked in with your mask, everybody's sitting at tables. As soon as you sat down, you took your mask off. Well, my husband and I said, to heck with that. We took our masks off when we walked into a restaurant, and we walked up to the hostess stand like this. And they said, what are you doing? I said, well, COVID doesn't live down here. This is where the people are sitting at tables. If we don't make a joke about some of this stuff and see how ridiculous it was, this is where we're at. And again, some people, to those that want to wear the masks, wear them. No one's saying you can't, but you can't force us, because we were told it's safe and effective. If you had the vax and you were boosted, you weren't going to get COVID. We now know that's a lie. We know there's a lot more lies. In fact, Trump is speaking on Thursday night at 9:00. Everybody watch. They're coming out with all the election integrity, how the foreign influence operations impacted our country. We're going to start to see all of this, the disclosures coming out, and it's about time. And God bless the president, because it was not for him and the people that he put in power around him, we wouldn't be getting there. And I want to give credit to Tulsi Gabbard, because she did a lot of that work, by the way. Tulsi.
Hi, this is Diane Harris. I have a couple of clarifications here. So regarding that 161 votes, President Trump asked Byron to come to the Georgia rally, which was a hugely important time during the election. And on that day, they did what they call a vote-a-rama. It's all procedural votes. There was 80 to 90 votes done that day. That's part of what you have up there. So that is totally false. He is there for the vote, and he has the highest conservative rate, rated by all the conservative groups around. He is the #1 conservative. He's been fighting from the Tea Party from the very beginning. When you talked about Parkland, Byron was the one in the State House that went against the Republican people there, and he voted against it. He also was the one that came to Collier County against the mask mandates, and he said that's not constitutional, and it was because of him and others that showed up that got that done. He went to other counties and did that. He just didn't do it here, and he never took the vax either. They were required to there, but he didn't take the vax. So he's totally for, and Scott, Kylie, I know that you had asked Byron when he explained everything on Monday night and about the vaccines, right? He is for getting rid of that we have too many vaccines he doesn't have his kids vaccinated that way as well. So he is also on the same side as Renner on that. Now, I don't know if there wasn't a statement put out, but he discussed that with you on Monday night. And then, let's see, I apologize, but I just think it's not fair. I'm making clarifications because it's not fair to have lies up there about somebody I've known who's been fought for the conservative movement forever.
Any other questions?
I just want to say, Ian, thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for putting everything up on the board. And I think I haven't made up my mind on the vote for governor, so this has been fantastic. I appreciate the young lady who just stood up and said her piece. I appreciate you guys saying your piece. I appreciate everybody saying their piece. That's what our democracy is all about. You can discuss different positions and you try to persuade people to your position if you feel strongly about it. That's what we should be doing. We shouldn't just be jumping on the bandwagon for this guy or that guy. And like you said, do your research. If I were to give Byron Donalds one piece of advice, I would simply say, you should have you speaking for him. You did a great job. And I appreciate that. But he should be out there. He can take an opportunity. If he's leading in the polls, if the polls are accurate, I don't even know what polls they are, but if he's leading in the polls, he has an opportunity to get up and debate these people that are way lower than him in the polls, and it makes him much stronger. Hey, I don't have to be a Joe Biden. I don't have to be a Joe Biden and hide my basement during the campaign, and hopefully nobody asks me any questions, because that's how he comes across. And I think it would mean, and it would do him a lot more good if he went up there and stated his position like you stated. You did a great job stating it. So anyway, yeah, that's good. I didn't see it. I didn't see it, but I would like to see the debate. He's a great speaker. Well, I'm not amazing.
Thank you, Diane. I just want to say something now before I give the microphone back to Ann. So, who has something? And as long as everybody wants to get the dirty diaper out, and it appears that we're attacking Byron, and I haven't publicly came to support anybody. I remain neutral and provide a platform for everybody to air everything out. Who has something negative they want to say about Fishback? That probably goes without saying. All right. Who has something negative they want to say about Jay Collins? The point is, everybody feels that Byron is being attacked. I want to open the floor up, so if there's any attacks that have to be made, I just want anybody to be able to speak freely. That's why I have this club, so you can speak freely. That's all. I'm sorry. I thought I was trying to be helpful because it appears that people think that I'm here to stump for Paul Renner. I've had every governor candidate here except for Byron, and all the candidates contacted my wife and I to come and speak. I did not reach out to them, and that's why Byron hasn't been here. I mean, we still have time left. He's welcome to come anytime at the next meeting. He's welcome to come here to defend himself. I wasn't at the meeting Monday night. I know it was a shit show. I appreciate everybody behaving this evening and having the decorum. And at this point, I'm going to turn the microphone back to Ann.
Yeah, so I actually really think that, this is therapeutic. Our founding fathers had knockdown dragouts, there was fistfights, there was all kinds of stuff happening in these meetings when they decided to pen our Declaration and our Constitution. And I think the decorum here has been fantastic. And I know we are passionate about people that we support. And that's what makes Collier County, Florida, and America great. Because if we didn't care, our country would be China. All right, we don't want to be Iran or China. We want to care. But I think what we're learning though is that people around the world are waking up that God put them on the planet to be free. It didn't matter what color, language, culture, anything. We're all supposed to be free. We were just blessed to be in this second covenant nation of Judeo-Christian values where they penned it and they invoked our Creator's name 4 times in these founding fathers documents so that we know God made us free and the government has to stand back. And so this is what it's about, our First Amendment. And I just want to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to talk. And I know you have one more comment, and I don't want to keep you guys here later than you want to stay.
Thank you, Ann.
Oh, okay, we have comments. Bobby Williams has representatives here, and I personally love Bobby.
I just recently got my first poll call, so I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna take it. The names on there, the 4 you talked about, Bobby is being excluded from all polling. He's been campaigning since a year ago, January, to We the People. He stands for We the People. And about 4 weeks ago, Fishback asked him to be his running mate. Bobby said no.
Good for Bobby.
And my comment about Collins is that debate that you put the thing up. They went to invite Bobby to that. He reached out to Renner, he reached out to Collins, and he reached out to Fishback. And I decided going.
Are you talking about the Paul, that Patrick Bet-David?
They went to invite him.
That was Patrick Bet-David's. That wasn't the candidates.
No, but he reached out to them also.
Yeah.
One blamed the other one. Now locally, my comment is right across from Island Walk on Vanderbilt Beach Road. There are 5 properties, which means 5 houses. You need 1 1/4 or 2.5 acres to build a house in Golden Gate Estates. Well, the county rezoned that and they approved 200 apartments to be built on those 5 lots. That road's already flooding because when they put the cemetery next to it, our county approved it. I tried to fight it and they said they did their traffic study. Those 200 apartments, which are being sold as low income. And if low income is not rented, after a year, I understand those low income requirements go away. They can do anything with it. The county said that apartment complex is only going to affect the traffic on Vanderbilt Beach Road by 60 cars per hour. 200 apartments means 400 cars. I'm just putting it out there. Our county keeps rezoning these for urban sprawl in Collier County.
Have you guys asked to see the actual data behind their studies? Have you done a Freedom of Information Act or a public record request?
No, I haven't done that yet, but I went to those meetings because I was fighting it.
Good for you, thank you.
But they said they did their study.
Sure, show us the data. Show us the data. And they're supposed to do that.
Someone had said, and I just wanted you to be able to clarify, did you post something saying yesterday that Fishback and the night of the meeting? Okay.
I did. I did.
First of all, I want to say that you spoke here in Naples a few years ago, and I followed you on Instagram since then. I've relied on you for reports that you've done, so this is nothing necessarily against you as a reporter. However, after a meeting on Monday night when everything happened with Fishback, you posted a Twitter post, and a video talking about it being not for violence. And in the video, you said a CCREC member had told you that we were told in the meeting to get our cameras rolling, which did not occur. So when you talk about researching, when you talk about vetting, you did not do that before you posted those things. That was not true. And my thing is, I agree with Kate. Why are we smearing other Republicans. Why are we not talking about what we like about our candidates instead of all this negativity? Because in the end, it's only gonna hurt us when we're up against a Democrat, no matter who it is. Okay? So I really believe that we need to be careful with our words, and as Christians, which many of us are in here, we need to not bear false witness. We need to be very careful with our words against each other. There was a lot of problems after those posts and after things that happened on Monday, and we need to be careful with what we say.
Thank you. And I'm going to address that comment. Yes, I posted a video. I got a call from somebody who was at the CCR, the Collier County Rec meeting. And they told me, I'm not going to call out names, but they told me that, yes, they were asked to have their cameras out. That's me reporting what I was told. Now, when it, the source came to me. A member was a, but listen, okay, hold on. As a journalist, when a source calls, hold on. I reported from a source who wished to remain anonymous. So as a journalist, I protect that. If you called me and gave me information, I protect your name. Hold on, let me just finish. May I finish?
Would like to verify that I haven't been chair. So we can get to that.
Okay, I want to just finish the whole statement. That's okay. This is all good. I want to finish the statement because it's a two-part statement. I got a source who contacted me and said, we were asked to get our cameras out. I said, okay, I don't know. I didn't ask them who asked them. That's what they said. Hang on. I have spoken to some other researchers that have done a lot of vetting on candidates. And I've started to see the research, and I've done some digging on it myself. There are some concerns and some reports that are going to come out that potentially James Fishback is working with somebody who has worked very closely with the Republican Party of Florida. And I'm not going to get into the details, but that is it's a big concern because this person has a lot of social media influence and they've worked in a lot of areas that are very disruptive. And frankly, I think it's terrible that James Fishback showed up and invaded your meeting when he already had a chance to speak. Renner spoke, Collins spoke, and it was Byron Donald's turn. Where was the respect for Byron? As a candidate, you don't do that to other candidates. So I absolutely stand with you on how to get this situation under control. And to see them there, literally in a photo opportunity with him and his lieutenant governor candidate standing there acting, to me, it looked like they were bullies. They were not backing down, and they were enticing to engage more inflammatory conversation. And it was unfortunate that happened. I thought that was a very poor showing. And I agree. I'm not disagreeing. But we're going to find out because it's all about follow the money. And I'm going to get to the bottom of the money because the money is what drives everybody. And that's what we're going to do because I think we should know who is motivating candidates to do whatever it is they're going to do. Go ahead.
Folks, tomorrow, just going to skip ahead a little bit. Tomorrow, there's a county commissioners meeting. And we are meeting with the county commissioners to talk about opposing hyperscale centers. Myself, my wife, Jay, Dr. Schroeder is going to be with us. Other concerned citizens are going to be with us. Florida Citizens Alliance really brought this to the commissioners first, so we're supporting them. But really, Ann listed this as her number 2. She said affordability number 1. Respectfully, the hyperscale AI data centers, that is what we all need to unite about and against, okay? I started my advocacy work with my wife in 23, and the things that we did were incredible here in Collier County. Jimmy passed the Bill of Rights Sanctuary County Ordinance. Huge. It hasn't moved the needle when it comes to battling the tyranny that we faced. It hasn't moved the needle. Let me finish, please. And the AI data centers, the hyperscale AI data centers, They must be opposed. This is the control grid.
Right.
This is the surveillance state, and this is our digital prison.
Yes.
And if you imagine that being in place during COVID, if you imagine that the authoritarians had that tool during COVID, imagine the power, turning off your motor, turning off your money, shutting down your mobility, right?
Air conditioning.
Mandating that you get the injection and tracking and tracing. They will have the authority. That is what these hyper AI data centers are about. It is a foundational piece to the surveillance state and the digital prison. Folks, we're arguing about a lot of things. This is where we need to unite. So tomorrow, if any of you would like to come to the county commissioners meeting, we are going to be vehemently opposing this and asking for a 1-year moratorium. Hyperscale AI data centers, they're not for us. They're for the authoritarians that want to control us. It is the destruction of our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and our freedom and our sovereignty. We must oppose it.
Okay, first of all, I want to say that we got a little bit heated here, and sometimes that's okay. We brought in almost all of the gubernatorial candidates, except for Byron. And I just want to clarify why Byron did not come here. And this is the reason. I had first booked Jay Collins way before he even threw his hat in the ring to be governor. He was supposed to speak here as lieutenant governor. When he did speak here, he had then put in his, that he wanted to be candidate. James Fishback heard and saw on the Facebook account that we had Jay Collins here. And then he called and said, I want to speak. Listen, we're an open forum here. If you're a Republican, you're welcome to share what your platform is. So Jay Collins then came and spoke. After Jay Collins, it was James Fishback. After James Fishback, Paul Renner reached out to me, and I said, absolutely, because we had now 2 other candidates that had shared their platform with you. Bobby Williams then called and said, I saw that you had the other candidates. May I come and speak? And I said, absolutely. Byron could have just called just like all the rest of them, and we would have definitely given him the platform also. But of course, he's, polling in the double digits, and we're just a very small little club, so maybe he didn't think of calling to say that he would like to speak. And then plus he is from this area. He's from Tiger. He's our representative. So it's not that we did not want Byron to speak. So I want to make that very, very clear. As the Naples Republican Club, Jimmy and I and our board remain totally neutral. We do not endorse any candidates. We brought these people in. You have heard them speak. You have brains. You can use your critical thinking. And I want you all to go home, do your research, and then you know what? When you walk in that day to pull that lever or to sign those papers, you put it into the machine and cast your vote, do it for yourself, for your family, for your community. Do what you think is right, who you want to be your next governor.
That's right.
Don't let anybody say you. Don't let anybody broke you. Don't let anybody tell you that you must vote the way that they do. You are an individual, you are a thinking creature, and you can make your own decision who you want to be your governor. So, okay, are there any other, now that I whacked all of you, are there any other announcements or anything that people may want to say? I know, Scott, that the issue that you're dealing with is the AI centers. I too, I know that there's a place for them. However, I think we have to be very careful, as far as putting up the data centers. With me,
it's the Muslim situation. I'm very concerned. I mean, we're complaining about all of this stuff. We're gonna all be wearing hijabs, you know, and.
Got two more things. Closing comments.
Okay. I'm gonna give this over to, the president.
President?
Yeah, right. We have two more things. I want to give Ann a chance to make some closing remarks, and then you got a ticket when you walked in, so we're gonna draw, and I'm gonna have Ann draw the ticket for the Trump wine. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. You know, I get disheartened at times. Sometimes the attendance here is on the weak side, but I'm really, really proud to say that I belong to this community and to have such a showing this evening, because it shows that you're interested in what's going on in the community.
And I want to thank you all very much for inviting me into your community to be able to speak to you tonight. I love the fact that we had an incredible discourse, and I know tempers got hot, and that's okay. Because you know what it tells me? You have a pulse and you care and you love your country, and you should stand for the candidate in which you believe. And I echo what Carol said. Don't let anybody persuade you. The only thing I ask is that you always know your facts on your candidate. And I'm going to do the research that you talked about with the Hertz situation so that I have all my facts straight. And I'm going to also ask Paul Renner, because we talked about home rule and local action. I'm going to ask Paul to address that because I think he needs to get that position very clear as well. I appreciate everything you guys do for your community, and let's do a drawing, shall we?
Thank you. But I have one more thing to say about the voting. Nobody's going to influence me to vote unless, since I came from New York, the envelope is thick enough. Then I would consider voting correctly. The last four digits are 542. 542. I think this is happening. Thank you, Jerry. So, as Jay walks off into the sunset with his bottle of wine, he's over there asking Natalie, was your corkscrew, I bet. That's going to be his next move. I want to thank Joe. Oh, Kathy asked me to make an announcement. We do need people to be poll watchers. We do need people to make phone calls. Pam Cunningham, I believe, is in charge of that, right? She sent an email out. Anybody interested in being a poll watcher or getting involved in the election, please see John and Kathy. They're over there. Our candidates are here. Terry's here. Rich is here. Ann's not running away anywhere. Please feel free to come up and speak with them. And thank you again. Drive safely. What? No. I thought you said that.